Well, good evening, everybody. It's the Cryptid Huntress. I'm Jessica Jones. Thank you guys so much for being here tonight. Man, do we have a great show lined up for you guys. And yes, I was out in the woods just this weekend, hanging out in Alabama over with a whole bunch of guys and women and men in the Alabama forest, the Talladega National Forest, as a matter of fact. And boy, do we have some stories for y'all tonight. And I'm gonna get into that just a little bit today. And so shout out to everybody who was over there at that camp out that I was at. Thank you to Mark and Rebecca Green for inviting me out there. And I've got some pictures I might show you guys too as well. It was an eventful time. And on the way home last night, I left around midnight last night to drive back to Georgia. And I encountered something very strange on my ride home. And I'm not saying it was a dogman, two dogmen, but it might have been two dogmen right down the road from where we were camped out. So you guys, please buckle up tonight, because we're going to be talking about some pretty intense stuff tonight. I do have my good friend Mark Machek here with me tonight. He's going to talk about a lot of his research, things that he has discovered throughout his research at all his times out at the Land Between the Lakes up in Kentucky. And we're going to not only talk about Dogman tonight, we're going to talk about Bigfoot. We're going to talk about a bunch of stuff. And so you guys are in for a huge treat tonight. It's going to be awesome. So please go over to my website if you guys would like to follow along with all my shows and check out my calendar of events and all that kind of stuff where I'm going to be coming up here pretty soon. I just added another one to the list, y'all. I'm going to be out in Murphy, Tennessee. I think that's September the 6th or 9th. I can't remember. It's that weekend. On a Saturday, I'm going to be at the Cherokee County Bigfoot Festival up there, up in Murphy, North Carolina. Actually, not, did I say Tennessee? It's North Carolina. We're going to be up in North Carolina at a Bigfoot Festival in September. So y'all come see me at that if you live up near Murphy, North Carolina. And it's going to be great. Okay. And Jerry Millwood Jr. will be there with us, by the way, and Harley Owens. Harley showed up at our camp last night too. So I got to see Harley again. I've been running into Harley Owens a lot, y'all, a lot. And it's fun. There was a big old crowd out where we were last night. And so all those guys are going to be out there with us in September. Okay. So also, if you guys would like to support my work and everything, go over to my Patreon, become a member. Thank you guys so much for all the members of my Patreon, and my shop is called War Woman Goods. And you guys can also become a member of the Hunt Club, where I put out exclusive videos every week here on the YouTube channel. And I appreciate you guys so much for all of your support. Okay, well, how about this? Before I bring Mark up, I can show you guys some pictures right quick from this weekend, because, man, there were some great people out there. We had Flat Rock out there. Patrick Noble, shout out to Patrick and Flat Rock. Dale Boswell was there, and Wendell Mosley as well. Bigfoot 911. Great guys out there. And there's Wendell. I think they call that getting Wendellized. I think is what they call that. Wendell takes pictures of everybody, y'all. And Gary Spikes Sr. was out there. You guys know Gary Spikes from all the different channels. He is a moderator on several channels, I do believe. And he's a Bigfooter from out in Oklahoma. Great, great people over there. And this is some of the crew out there. That's me in the back being a ham, I think is what Joe called that. And there's me and Patrick again out there with that group. And we were serenaded by the great Dale Boswell last night. I think that he was performing at a Bigfoot conference today. And so we got to listen to some songs with Dale last night. That was a lot of fun. And so shout out to everybody who's in that hot, smoltery weather out there tonight. I'm in my air-conditioned house, and I feel good about it. I feel good about it, but I do miss everybody. And when I bring up Mark, I will give you a little history about the campsite where we were at. I think it has a lot to do with maybe what I saw last night on my way home. So, okay, so on this episode tonight, let me do my intro. We're going to be talking with Kentucky resident Mark Machek, aka Cryptidville. That's where you can find his website, or his YouTube channel and his website, cryptidville.com. But he's from the Land Between the Lakes research area. And we're going to look into some of the things he's learned during his research there. Of course, I'm going to talk about my encounter as well with something that looked like a mix between a bear, a cougar, and an African dog, a hyena, last night. I saw two of them on my ride home, right outside of the camp last night. And so let's bring Mark up. Okay. Please help me welcome to the show my good friend, Mr. Mark Machek. Hey, Mark.
Hey, Jessica. Thanks for having me on again.
Well, of course, I always learn so much when I bring you on the show, and I really enjoy hearing about your experiences out there at the Land Between the Lakes. And I got to tell you something. There's been this video going around about this dog woman at the LBL that's recent. Well, it turns out people who filmed it were with me yesterday. Okay.
Awesome.
Yeah, so I got to actually sit down and see the entire video in its entirety. And the entire video in its entirety. That's funny. That's 20 minutes right there. The full video. And it's something. It's definitely something. I'm going to leave it at that. Now, whether it's a Dogman, I'm not sure. It's either Dogman or a Bigfoot, I think. Okay, for sure.
It's an interesting video.
It's a very interesting video. I think it would do a service to the people who could like look into it if they could see the entire video and not have like a suggestion beforehand, like, oh, this is definitely this or definitely that. I think it's if you go in with like without a bias when you're watching that video, I think it's a good thing. But it's a fantastic video. You guys have a lot of cryptids up there, Mark, a lot, and you've had your own experiences with them, right?
Oh yeah, there's it's never ending, and
there's a never ending flow of researchers up there too, right?
I guess you could say that. I mean, and I'm laughing because of the fact that where do you draw that line between the real researcher and the aspiring to be researcher?
Yeah. I think it comes with like seasoning. Seasoning sounds weird too. It comes with time, you know what I mean? And the boots on the ground. I think that's important. You putting in the work, and when I say like I'm a researcher, like I'm on like actual research teams. So we've been doing this for a long time. And it feels good to be able to say like, well, I did this for 10 years before I ever went public. You know what I mean? It feels good, but not to lessen the importance of what people are doing out there. Do you know what I mean? I think it's wonderful. There's such an interest in people getting out and getting to the truth and having their own experience with Dogman and Bigfoot, even though it's dangerous. Okay. But I think that we all take on that responsibility when we go out there. We know that we can get eaten. I know I can.
There's definitely nothing wrong with being curious and wanting answers, but I think that should be tempered with a healthy dose of caution. And I say that because of the simple fact that you have those people out there that, and not saying everybody does this, but there are people out there that do high risk things that really are placing themselves in a lot of danger.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
And
yes. Well, I seem to place myself in danger, and I understand that, and I'm fully aware of it. I've come to terms with it, and I'm okay with it. Okay, it just depends. But I also go with my gut. I'm cautious, and I wanted to kind of start off tonight too by telling the audience and telling you about where I was yesterday. Maybe not the exact location, but like the campground where we were is actually a place where Mark and Rebecca Green, some good friends of mine, I've been hanging out with them for since at least last year, and they kind of were hosting this, I guess, like yesterday or over the weekend. Some of those guys have been out there for a week or so.
wow.
And but it's a little campsite out, and it's where some guys go hunting and stuff, women, men, in the middle of nowhere out in Alabama. I think it's on the outskirts of maybe the Talladega National Forest, I think. And I didn't know it until we were live on Mark and Rebecca's show last night. I was doing an interview with Mark on their show, and he told me, he said, well, this is actually a place where I've been hunting, and a gentleman was actually found dead out here a few years ago, a while back. And then they got into how he died, Mark. And I was not aware of this. I was actually quite surprised when he told me that on air yesterday. And it turns out there was a hunter, according to what we've been told, a hunter was found dead outright right where the campsite was, behind a little gate, behind the backside of where we were camping out. They said that his leg was broken and twisted up behind his body, and his arm had been ripped off, and his body was laying against a tree right there behind where we were camping in that camp spot. And there were Dogman and Bigfoot sightings there, and they had their own encounters with Bigfoot and stuff out there before.
I don't know if you're aware of this or not, but when it comes to separating cartilage and bone like that, if I don't know if you ever seen an orthopedic surgery, but they're using hammers and chisels and mini jackhammers and stuff like that to separate bones. So just knowing that, it requires a lot of force to do that.
Okay, well, when I was telling, I had a lot to tell my mother last night, because I had a lot happen to me on my ride home last night. And I was telling her about that, about the man's body. She goes, "Oh, it sounds like when you pull a chicken apart." A rotisserie chicken, Mom. Thanks. Yes, I guess so. Even though but that's horrible. I mean, I got to have, my condolences to this man's family. Okay. Like, I'm not I'm not making fun or anything, because it's really horrible. Okay. But just the visual of it's really hard to like wrap your head around it and to visualize someone's body parts being pulled off and being laid beside the body. And like, how did his leg get twisted up like that? And I'm actually was talking to Mark about that last night. And we were kind of swapping stories about us taking reports and people we know taking reports of people who had probably it was suspicious that they had died of like a cryptid attack or some kind of cryptid related incident with a Bigfoot or a Dogman. And then you go and you look at the coroner's report they put out to the public, and they say it was a drug overdose. And
yeah, I've seen that myself in some of the cases that I've looked into. It's kind of sad and interesting at the same time. That they would attempt to cover it up with something like that. It seems to be a trend. If you look at some of the cases like that happen in East Tennessee, it's almost like they're trying to besmirch the character of the person that's the victim. And that's really kind of concerning, if you ask me, because it's like they just come up with the nearest thing available, and it was a drug overdose, and that was probably the farthest thing from it.
Yes. Well, let me tell you what Mark said after that, because after I told him that that's what happened with that case out of near Elberton, where I did that Bigfoot investigation up there, and had the park ranger telling me all about what happened up there. And that's in Georgia, by the way, y'all, where the Georgia Guidestones were. Okay. And when I told him that, he said, "Oh, that's interesting," because I don't know if he had asked around some of the DNR guys or park rangers or whatever about any deaths happening around there, but they said that there hadn't been any like strange deaths, just a whole lot of drug overdoses throughout the area, in people's cars and stuff, people that were camping, campsites and cars. That's what he told me last night. And then we both were like, okay, well, maybe they weren't all that. Maybe that's just what the story is. But who knows?
Seems to be a trend.
It's a trend. Yeah, it's a trend. I don't know. I mean, it could have been there is a terrible problem with, drugs and things like that. And so it could also be that too. So we're not saying that they weren't what we were told, what people are told. Okay. But maybe some of them are worth looking into a little more. But yeah, this is for entertainment purposes only, y'all. Okay. I almost forgot to say that tonight. But it's very tragic. Okay, so that happened. Okay, so that death happened out out there. I think that there's like 2 different stories about what happened to that guy, but the official report from like a higher up and some other people that were in the know said that he was ripped apart. Okay. And that happened there. And it was very suspicious. Very suspicious. Okay. So they get a lot of Bigfoot activity there at that area. They get a lot of, they've been Dogman sighted in the area. And so I didn't experience a whole lot. I was only there for a day. Okay. And I stayed there through late last night. And after midnight last night, I got in my truck and I was driving home. And I remember thinking, gosh, if my truck breaks down between here and the highway, I will literally die. Like, it was so creepy out there. And it was so far. I felt like I didn't know where I was. And I was like, it was one of the creepiest drives I've ever had. I'm not going to lie. And, but when I got out to the road, like the main road that led to the highway, I turned onto that paved road. It felt good to turn on a paved road, by the way, out there by myself in the middle of the night. And I got to an intersection and I drove past this intersection and I went a different way than I came because of GPS and everything. It put me on a more direct route home. And as I crossed over this intersection, like I'm going to say about less than a mile up the road, I saw a reflective eye shine on the left side of the road. And so I kind of just slowed down because I thought, oh, it must be a dog or something. It looked kind of big, but I was like, oh, it's probably a dog. I'm out in the country. And I got up to it and whatever it was like looking at my car, like looking at the headlights, and the lights were being reflected into the headlights. And I could see that it was black. Whatever it was black. And the grass was really tall. And it was kind of like in the grass, but it had a long neck. Like I remember the neck being like kind of long, and it had ears on the top of its head, like unusually large ears. Okay. And it was unusually large for a dog. And its eyes were reflecting in the light of my car, and it kind of moved its head at this weird head move, like a cat would do. And so I thought, oh God, that must be a panther, but then I was like, but the ears aren't right. Okay. And I was looking at it, and then I thought a million things were through my head, and it wasn't sitting. It was crouched. It was crouched in the tall grass, and it gnashed its teeth at me. And I do not know what it was, Mark. I thought it was then I thought it had to have been a mangy bear. I was thinking, like, so many things went through my head. And as I'm passing it, I slowed down and I was like looking at it. And I looked over to the side, and there was another one on the other side of the road, but its back was turned and it was hiding in the grass. And all I could see was its back, its hairy back. And it looked like a chimpanzee's back. Kind of. And it was like that long hair that you might have seen like on trail cams and stuff, like, oh, this might be a Bigfoot. Kind of looked like that because it was coarse, but it didn't move. It just sat there with its head down, and its back was arched up kind of, and it was in the tall grass. It was weird. It was so weird. And I didn't have time to like take a picture. I had my GPS out. If anybody knows me, I cannot do like 3 things at once when I'm driving at all. And I just wanted to get home. Okay, at that point, but whatever it was, it looked at my car, it paid attention to me, and it gnashed its teeth kind of. And I don't think it looked like, the way I described it was an African dog, like an African dog. And I actually pulled up some pictures because I was trying to figure out like what was the combination of like what it was, because it wasn't a regular dog. There's no way it was a regular dog. It was too big. It wasn't a bear, so. And I thought it was a panther because the way its face looked. Okay, its face looked more panther-like. Something like kind of like that. But it was the size of a small bear. And here's a mangy bear because it didn't have any hair on its face hardly, too. But its whole body was black. So that's why I thought it might be a mangy bear. And its hair this is a hyena, a brown hyena. And it had hair like that. But it was like more dark. And it had ears on top of its head. Like that. That's a bad picture. Here's another one right here. It had like ears sticking up on its head like that. So that's why I thought maybe it was a bear. Okay. But it definitely showed its teeth. It looked a lot like that, which could be a bear. You know what I mean? Could have been a bear, but I don't think it was a bear. And so I waited till today to like contact anybody back at the base camp, cause I was like, I had to think about it. I was like, I'm not sure what I saw. And so I sent Mark a message today and a couple of the guys there, and he wrote me back, and I told him exactly where it was. And he told me, he said, well, that's interesting because that's where my friend owns that property right there. and he called them boogers, and he said, and they've also had Dogman sightings right there. He said so, and that couldn't have been more than it's somewhere between 6 to 10 miles from base camp where we were. Not even 10. It couldn't have been 10 miles because it was about 5 miles to the road. Yeah, it was probably about 7 miles from the base camp.
It's not really that far in the grand scheme.
As far as the crow flies, it wasn't but a couple miles probably, without having to drive down all those roads and the mountains and the forest and everything. So I don't know. I mean, could I have seen my first visual of 2 dogmen last night? Maybe. I might have. It was almost surreal. It didn't make sense what I was looking at. And so I don't know if it seems like that's kind of common for people that have, I've seen some weird stuff, but this was super weird last night because my rational brain mark kept telling me it had to have been a bear or it had to have been a panther. But the way it looked at me and it did its little head and it like crouched down and it did this weird like slither. It like slithered. Okay. It slithered. I know. It's weird.
Sounds very similar to what I saw one night in the LBL. That thing actually, when it crossed the road in front of me, it was actually moving like a lizard. And it just did not fit any animal that I've ever seen before.
Exactly.
And it was weird. Yeah, I've never seen anything like that.
Okay, well, I am glad that lines up kind of with the way I felt about what I saw last night. It didn't seem real, and I could not figure. It was so confusing because I couldn't figure out what it was, what I was looking at, and the funny thing is, that my first thought did not go to Dogman. I was like, there's no way. I always joke around about how I hope I see a Bigfoot on the way out. I'll say that to people sometimes. I'm like, well, hopefully a Dogman will run out in front of my car. But I never expect that to happen. And then to have something crouched down, hiding in the grass on the side of the highway, leaving there, it was pretty interesting, pretty scary actually, but also really awesome.
That's one of my things is, riding around in the LBL at night, I most of the roads over there, unless you're on like a main road, they're all dirt roads. And you can never tell what you're going to run up on until you're actually on it. Mm-hmm. So, and the majority, if you look at the sighting configurations is the word I'm going to use. There are more sightings by people driving than any other sighting type.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I get a bunch of like truck drivers and stuff. I know Andrew Gnome's trucking send a chat sometimes. I don't know if he's in here tonight yet, but he's left several comments about seeing he's a truck he drives a big rig, okay, and he's had several sightings of things like Dogman and Bigfoots and things like that. Uh-oh. Hold on one second. Oh my gosh. Sorry, I got to plug in my computer, y'all. Okay. Sorry. I almost lost everybody because I didn't plug my computer in. Okay. Panic ensues. Yeah. So truckers and people on the road. I mean, that's a lot of sightings. I know Colleen Norris came on the show a while back, who has that video of the grave digging Dogman in Ohio. And she was telling us about the report she's taken of people that see werewolves or dogmen. We're going to call them dogmen on the side of the road out there. And in Ohio, it happens more often than people might think. A lot of times it is on the side of the road. And I've heard about that at the LBL too. I think like D.A. Roberts or somebody had a sighting where they said they saw something on the side of the road before.
I've personally had encounters like that in the LBL where there's something on the side of the road, and before you can get to it, it's already gone. But as you're coming around like a bend or whatever, you can see it, or you can see the movement. But once you get there, it's gone. You can't really say that that's a Bigfoot or Dogman, but there was definitely something there. Mm-hmm. So I mean, I can believe it.
Oh yeah. It's I I didn't want to come on here tonight. I know I put it in the title because I think when Mark told me that there are Dogman sightings on that property right there, and it just made more sense at that point that was a Dogman that I saw. That was because the first thing that I said, and the first thing that I noticed, what it looked like an African hyena. But when you think of like when I've talked about like the hyena Dogman sightings, I have never thought about them looking the way what I saw last night. Because what I've been shown, and this is interesting because this is what I've always looked at, was that chart that we have of the hyena Dogman, and it looks like a hyena. Okay, like that canine variant 2 right there down at the bottom. When I think of something looking like a hyena Dogman, I think of that. But see, like what I saw was all black. So it was pitch black. It was dark. It was black. It had white teeth. Okay. Its face did not have a lot of hair on it. It didn't have any hair on it, actually, from what I can recall. It didn't have any hair on it, from what I could see, at least. But it was all black. It didn't have I don't remember having spots or anything. It was just all black, but it had that shape of the face and the ears and the head like that. Okay, so it wasn't, so it didn't look like an actual brown hyena with spots on it and stuff. It had hair all over it, like long hair on its body. Okay, wow. So yeah. I don't know. I'm kind of excited now because I'm like, oh, I think I saw a Dogman now. Okay, I think that's what it was. But nonetheless, I wanted to let the guys back at the base camp know about that today because they need to just keep an eye out. Keep an eye out.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, those things can move a long distance, right, Mark? Like 10 miles, 7 miles is not that far for a Dogman.
When I was in the military, the farthest I ever marched was 25, and that took roughly 7.5, 8 hours to do. And when you look at the factors of height and gait, and the other factor, quadrupedal motion, when you take those things into consideration, it's not a far fetch to think that one of those things could go that far in a relatively short amount of time.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah. Well, we got to wonder too, like if that man was torn to shreds, even if it was 5-10 years ago, or even in the 1980s. I don't remember exactly when he said that happened. I don't think it was that long ago. You got to wonder, like, I don't know how long do these reports go back and these sightings, and how many people have actually been hurt out there? You know what I mean? Because I know Mark had mentioned something about they'd said there were several drug overdoses and stuff at people's campsite. He said there's actually been several tents, and this is common where we go to do our Bigfooting research up in North Georgia. We'll find abandoned campsites pretty often up there. I mean, I haven't found one in a long time, but like the guys, myself too, we've come across abandoned campsites where it looks like people ran out in the middle of the night and never went back to get their stuff.
Yeah, we find those sometimes in the LBL. It's kind of concerning,
Yeah.
especially when you find factors that indicate that there was a quick exit, like leaving important things behind, or cutting themselves out of the tent out of one side or the back side instead of using the front door. Why would a person do that?
Oh gosh, that's terrible.
Unless there's something outside the tent on the front side that's potentially causing them to be concerned. Yeah.
That reminds me of the Dyatlov Pass incident, where those, I think it was 9 Russian hikers, I guess. They cut their way out of their tent from the inside. So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, if you think about it, there's one little piece of material that separates you from like bears and dogmen and Bigfoots and all that. It's really not a lot. It's really not a lot. You're not safe. You're not really safe in your tent. Just saying.
I've actually heard of instances where Bigfoot has actually grabbed somebody inside of a tent and tried to pack it off. Just pulled up the stakes and everything and just drug them off through the woods.
That's a real Bigfoot burrito. That's like a quesadilla. The Bigfoot tamale right there. I know. I definitely have. I was considering yesterday. I was considering staying there last night, and but it was so humid and hot, and but the only setup that I had was my hammock setup with my tarp, and I'm not so sure. I don't know. After hearing about that man getting ripped to shreds, I was like, I don't know. Do I stay and put my hammock over where that guy got ripped up? I don't know. That might be
Yeah.
fun, or not, or not. I don't know. Probably not. I'm glad I didn't actually, because if I had not left, I wouldn't have seen those creatures down the road last night, and I
Yeah.
wouldn't be able to tell you all about it. So, so yeah, and of course, the first thing I asked Mark was, "Do you guys have black bears out here?" And he said, "Yes, there are occasional bears in the Talladega National Forest." He said, they are out there. They're not super common, but there are bears out there. But where that property is, where I saw that, he said that's right there where his friend owns that property, and they have Dogman sightings there. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, that's really cool. So I don't know. I just wanted to share that with everybody tonight. I know I'm I'm conflicted on it, and Angelique is asking, was I afraid? And no. Okay, I was creeped out by that drive down that dirt road. Yes, I was creeped out. Okay, I had my doors locked, and I was fine. I was fine. I got my pew pew with me. Okay, I'm good. Um, and I have multiple weapons on me, including myself. I am a deadly weapon. Okay, but nonetheless, it's not. It was unnerving. But then seeing that, no, I was more confused than afraid. I was not afraid of whatever that was. I was just confused a little bit, curious and perplexed. And of course, like down the road a little ways, Mark, I did see a dog, a regular dog. And I thought, well, maybe they were like chasing that dog or something. Like maybe they were there, like maybe that dog was their friend. I mean, I don't know.
You know,
I'm reaching here with that one, so I don't know.
I have a personal experience that we hear about. The factors where people have dogs that get attacked and killed or
Mhm.
whatever, torn apart and all that good stuff. And I'm sure that that stuff does happen when the dog is, usually it's a large aggressive breed that that type of scenario unfolds with. But as a prime example, um, you know, I I had I had a little dog, and as a matter of fact, he looked looked a lot like the little dog. I know we see Ed Testerman. His
Eric.
little, yeah,
Yeah.
his little cream colored dog.
Oh, yes. So cute.
My little male dog looked a lot. He was a little bit bigger than him, but he looked a lot like him. So, um, you know, one night he got out and he got out the front door and he took off and he's it's funny. Used to be when he was younger, when he would get loose, he would take off like a rocket and he would just run and run and run and run and run. And he was hard to catch. You couldn't
I
get him
bet.
back in. So that particular night when he got out, I mean, this is the middle of the night. And I should preface this with what happened prior to that. So my mother-in-law lived lived next door, and she called over here. And she was like, "Hey, there's somebody beating on my front door."
Oh,
And I was like, "Well, hold on, let me check it out." This, that, and the other. So, um, in the amount of time that it took for me to get up out of bed and get some shoes on, whoever or whatever it was had come over and was doing the same thing to our door.
oh, you live next door?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and it wasn't like they
Wow.
were knocking on the door or beating on the door. It's like they grabbed the storm door frame and it's like they were shaking it.
Oh,
So it wasn't normal. It
that's a
was
no
weird.
no. unless somebody's life's in danger and they need help,
Yeah.
or your house is on fire.
So it turned out, it turned out, my wife was like, that's my mama next door. Don't be messing with my mama, kind of
Oh,
thing.
yeah.
So she opened up the door, and I was like, thinking to
Uh-oh.
myself, don't do that. Don't open the door. Because, when she looked out the peephole, she couldn't see anybody.
Oh, God.
So she opened up the door and was looking outside, and that's when the dog got out.
Oh, gosh.
Well, he took off, and he took off running. Well, he went across the road into this big field, and he took off. And I was calling him. I was whistling for him. Pay attention, because I did the thing that you're not supposed to do at night.
You whistled.
I was whistling for him. Well, I was standing
Uh-oh.
there, and I was calling him and whistling, and there was just no sign of him.
Oh,
He had just
God.
taken off. Well, further down the road, because I live on a dead end road, further down the road, uh, on the other side of our properties, there's a lot that's got trees on it, and it's wooded, so you can't really see on further down the road. So all of a sudden, when I would whistle, somebody would whistle. What I thought was somebody would whistle,
Person.
but I could not see them.
Uh-oh.
And I was like, it really pissed me off. So
And you still don't know who was banging on your door.
no.
Do you
And
assume it was that person that was whistling? There was somebody playing with you, or?
well, let me finish the
Uh-oh.
story.
Uh-oh.
So here I am. I'm strapped up, got a full combat load.
Oh, yeah. You ready to
I'm
you
ready to
serve
I'm ready
freedom fries, right?
I'm ready to get down,
Right.
and I'm pissed off. And I can't really say what I said, but I told him, I said, "Stop whistling. I'm trying to get my dog in." And I whistled, and they did it again.
Oh,
And I was like, it just didn't do anything but really, really agitate me.
oh man.
Well, all of a sudden, here he comes. He comes out of that lot. He makes a beeline for the front door, and I open up the storm door and I let him in. And he's running around. And he's all excited, like he got out of jail, kind of thing,
Yeah.
for a little bit.
Freedom.
So he comes in, and I don't really at first pay a whole lot of attention to him. I'm just like telling him he needs to come whenever I call him, and this, that, and the other. So he he makes a beeline for the bedroom, and he jumps up on my side of the bed, and I go in there, and all of a sudden I could smell him, and it is a smell that I have never smelled before. It wasn't like
Oh,
he got sprayed by something or rolled in something dead. Those are common smells that you smell,
yeah.
especially if you have a dog that's going to roll in something that's a dead animal or whatever. So ended up, I told him, I said, "Boy, you're not staying in here like that." So I took him in the bathroom and I gave him a bath, and it it took 2 baths for me to get that out of his fur.
Oh my God. It's like he got in the armpit of a Bigfoot or something.
I think
Oh
because
man.
because there were some incidences that took place, and it always seemed to be where, there was one night where I had come out he had come out of the bedroom, and it was always this one particular dog. He came out, and we used to let them go in and out of the house at night whenever they wanted to, and through their dog door, and we didn't lock it. So if he had to go outside and go to potty, he would just go. Well, I was sitting there, and I heard him come out, and he went out the dog door. I didn't pay him any mind. Well, I never heard him come back in. He was out there for a long time.
Mhm.
So I got up and I went to the side door and I turned the light on and I looked, and he was not out there. Well, I go back and I'm sitting at my desk, and it was 20 minutes later. Here he comes. He comes in the dog door, and I turn and I look at him. I'm like, now I know I'm not imagining this. So um, there were some incidences that happened where they were trying to lure the dogs out there.
Mm.
And I went out there and I told them pretty much that if they did anything to my dogs, that it was going to be World War III.
Uh-oh. I don't blame you. And that's interesting is we had Jerry Millwood on last weekend,
Mhm.
and he was talking about his little dog who had no teeth. I think she was
Yeah, I remember
15.
that.
Yeah, and she went missing, and for 19 days that little poor little dog was gone. And I tell you what, that pulled on everybody's heartstrings last weekend. It did. And what a great story though, because the dog showed back up.
Mhm.
And he believes that either a Bigfoot or maybe even feral people took care of that dog for 19 days because there's no way she survived on her own.
Yeah, I was like, I've heard of dogs disappearing for like 1 or 2 days, but never 19 days.
No.
Especially an elder dog like that.
And she ate meat the whole time she was gone because I
Yeah,
asked, I had to ask about the poop and everything. I was like, well, how did she, what was she eating? Like, did you investigate? And he was like, oh yeah, I did. I looked at her poop and stuff. But okay, so what we're establishing here basically is like Bigfoots, even Dogmen, they're not all out there to like eat our pets. I guess. I mean that's one way we could look at this, right? Because your dog seemed to be okay with
yeah.
it, and potentially, if these were dogmen that I saw last night, which I think there's a high probability that's exactly what I was looking at last night. Um, there was a dog. I'm going to say like 50 yards, not even 50 yards, maybe 20 to 50, maybe 30 yards down the road. There was a dog down there that I did see, and it didn't look anything like what I had just looked at. Okay, it was more
And
like a dog.
yeah, and it may have been running with them.
Could have been. Could have been. Well, the way that thing looked at me, it looked like it was slinky. Like I said, it was like slinky, and it did its head all weird. And it showed, and it gnawed its teeth at me. Like it showed me its teeth. I was thinking, well, I wonder if that is something, whatever that was, he gotten hit by a car or something, because it was slouched down. And it's just stuff that went through my mind. It was just like, well, just trying to make sense of whatever that was. It's like maybe it got hit by a car or something. Maybe it got hit, but there were no cars out there. It was in the middle of the night. I didn't pass a single car until I got into like a town. Like I want to say like 20 minutes later. Okay,
Wow.
a small town. Yeah, I didn't pass a single car out there. That's out in the middle of nowhere. But I'm going to take a quick commercial break because I want to thank Walter and Kent. Walter, thank you for that super sticker. And Kent Baxter, thank you also for that super sticker. He said he's glad he can make it to the best show out there. Thank you so much. Howdy, Mark. Glad you're here tonight. Thank you, Kent. And thank you, Walter, as well. I appreciate that. And Maureen, thank you so much for being a member of the Hunt Club for 16 months. Sweet 16. Thank you so much. That means the world to me that you're a part of the Hunt Club. Thank you, guys. But okay. Thank you for sharing those stories about your dogs. Like, so your dogs were fine. Like they never got injured by any kind of Bigfoot or whatever. And you never figured out what that was banging on your door too, right?
Yeah, it was a very strange incident, and it we never let me just put it like this. Ended up, I told my wife to call the sheriff and have him send a deputy out. she called. They never sent anybody out.
What? No, that's wild. And how did your mother-in-law deal with that? Because I know that had to have been terrible for her.
Well, we talked about, putting in cameras
Hmm.
so that we could, because she was elderly at the time, so that we could see, if anybody were over there, that didn't need to be. And you know it ended up that we didn't actually do that, because sadly she passed away. But that's the main reason why we didn't end up doing that. Which, I mean, I may still end up putting some up, just so I can keep an eye on what's going
Oh,
on around here.
yeah,
Because, as you know, lots of crazy people out there.
yeah. Crazy folks out here chasing down Dogman and Bigfoot and stuff. I know, like myself. Uh, yeah, absolutely. We've talked about it before when you've been on the show. I know we've talked about all the interesting experiments people do out there and stuff. And I mean, maybe they're flushing them out to your house. You know what I mean?
Mm,
Maybe they're flushing them all out of the park out there.
well, hopefully not. But as far as that goes, I've heard people, researchers, talk about, I did this experiment or I did that experiment, and I've researched over in and around this area for 25 plus years, and if there's an experiment that could be done, I have done it. You
Oh
know,
yeah.
and I know what works and what doesn't.
Hmm.
And I'm not saying that before we get there, I'm not saying that I'm an expert on anything, but I have found things that do work and I found things that don't. I can tell you that they do not, and this is more so, uh, Bigfoot. They do not like music that has a lot of 2 kilohertz range tones in it.
Oh,
A lot of bass. They do not like that.
they don't like the bass. So they're not out there booty shaking and stuff, huh? Dang.
They ain't out there
We
twerking.
can't be friends then. I'm just kidding. I can't be friends with the monsters out there then if they don't drop it like it's hot out with some bass. I'm just kidding. Well, that's a good way to keep them away from you, though. Okay, I'm just saying. My buddy Jay Painter, I don't know if Jay's in the chat tonight, but Jay goes to like bass competitions and stuff with his Jeep. So I think he did. I don't know. He's into the bass. So you're gonna scare them off. I don't like bass like that either, by the way. It's a little much. So I can feel it. It's almost like, I mean, I would assume they don't like dog whistles either. I mean, I know that sounds just kind of basic and weird, but I wonder, like, because there's got to be those tones and those frequencies and stuff. I mean, there's all sorts of weapons and sound manipulation frequency weapons and stuff that are used on humans, that I mean, we can get into that whole mind control aspect of like controlling the masses and stuff. So I mean, I remember hearing a story one time about a family that had a dog man on their property, and they called the sheriff's department or somebody to come out there, and like military style people showed up, and they had these like some kind of like speakers or something, and they were playing these tones and frequencies, and there was basically that's how they were getting whatever critters were out there. They were capturing them out there through these sounds and stuff. So I don't know if they were like attracting them or
Well,
destabilizing them, and like I want to say deactivating them, but like you know
wh-
putting them
when
down basically.
when I say they don't really like those tones,
Mhm.
it's more of a scenario where they will come in, and they're not coming in because they like it. They're coming in because it's irritating them, and they're wanting it to stop.
They want it to
And
stop.
and they're probably in the mindset of, destroy it, to make it stop, kind of thing. So, and on the flip side of that, I've seen them attracted to heavy equipment before,
Huh.
and the vibration and sound that puts off I've seen it draw them in, and it's very interesting stuff.
Oh gosh. Well, and also I would assume, you hear about the the logging companies going after the Bigfoots because the Bigfoots are trying to destroy their heavy equipment. It's because they're destroying their habitat out there and their home. And so maybe that's another reason they're attracted to that equipment. They want to go get rid of it.
Could be.
Could be. Yeah. It could be. I don't know. I have seen some really interesting comments in here about cases where people were found unalived, okay, and like eaten upon and taken out of their cars and their body parts ripped off and all that kind of stuff. There's a lot of cases of that out there that you hear about. It's kind of hush hush, and one of the most popular, well-known cases came out of the LBL when it comes to stuff like that, and I think that's really the base of like the basis of a lot of the people that want to go out there and do the research is because of the pull of like knowing that there had been an alleged Dogman attack out there of an entire family that were ripped apart. Somebody was telling me last night, as a matter of fact, I was listening to some stories about that, and somebody was out in the LBL is what I heard. This is what I heard. Okay, this is what I heard. I don't know if this is true or not. Okay, but I heard that there were some people out there that there was a woman with a cadaver dog out there, and she was walking around. I guess her dog alerted. They were at that area where the family was allegedly unalived out there by the Dogman, and the dog alerted to a tree. They said they were looking for the tree where the little girl had been, and sure enough, the dog went over to one of the trees in that same exact area where they didn't know which tree it was. The dog went to a tree and it alerted to a cadaver had been in there, a human, before. So I don't know. It's just interesting, when you get if that's true, then that's maybe could back it up. Having stuff like that, talking about it. I'm not saying that was an experiment, but people are looking for the truth behind some of these stories.
And there's nothing wrong with wanting the truth, but with that, you have to you can't embellish and aggrandize things and present it as the truth when you don't know it to be the truth, or you don't have evidence to back it up.
Well, there's some hearsay and things like that, So I don't know. I remote viewed it too. I think it probably happened. I'm just saying that's just me. I just think it happened. But anyways, nonetheless, it brings thousands of people out there every year to come look for the chase the monsters out there. I mean, I might be coming up there this year. Who knows? I might even make a trip up there. You got to go do it once, right? I'm worried. I'm worried that the LBL is going to end up like URI, like how David Perdue is always complaining about it. He's like, because it's true. It's like, a TV show came out there, and now it's kind of like, kind of messed up all the research out there.
Well, as with everything, I would say that probably the LBO is on the precipice of just that, because of the changes that have been made with the staffing and stuff like that with the Forest Service or the Department of Agriculture. So, yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Dawn's got some good cases too. And I saw Sean and Dawn are both putting some good cases of people who have been unalived allegedly by dogmen and cryptids. The Mallory Swamp, Florida case involved 3 dogmen with a large 10-foot one. And in this case, one swam underwater to attack while one on shore was a decoy, very tactical. Oh my gosh. That's terrifying. What? I have not heard about that one, but I will definitely look into that.
I've heard of them doing that.
Have you?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's the first time I've ever heard that. Was it doggy paddling? I'm just kidding. No, that's really scary. That's really
Yeah.
scary.
Well, the thing that I've heard, is that they can not just Dogman, but Bigfoot as well, that they can stay underwater for a long time
Oh,
without having to come up for air.
oh my gosh. Um, well, gosh, I'm always telling everybody, be careful about going to Lake Lanier. So like, I don't know. There's something that, oh, if now we're combining dogmen and lakes and water. Oh gosh. Oh gosh. Please tell me it ain't so. I'll never go back swimming in these lakes. A matter of fact, y'all, if you guys watch, what is that guy's name? My Lunch Break, I think he put out a new video today, and it corresponds to everything I've been talking about with the man-made lakes and like things underneath it, like the ancient Egyptian settlements and everything. Well, he took it a step further, and he was talking in a video he put out today about the Hoover Dam and the old world. Everything old world got flooded out by those dams and stuff, and the man-made lakes. And so it's all coming full circle, y'all. So go check him out if you get a chance. I don't know that guy at all, but I love his videos. A lot of things are covered up, and I've even talked about like the man-made lakes. I don't know, are the land between the lakes, are those lakes man-made, Mark, or those natural? Yeah. They are. Oh, they are man-made, aren't they? Okay. Because you gotta wonder like what all's been covered up there, and like maybe that's why the cryptids are there, guarding all that sacred land and everything, but like they can't get to that old sacred land where a lot of these burial sites and even cemeteries and things are. So they hang out on the perimeter of the lakes and stuff, because they're still there to like guard that sacred land at all cost.
Definitely a possibility,
Mm-hmm.
because interestingly, there are archaeological sites that have been located in on either side of those lakes, on the outer side, not on the inner side where the LBL is, but on the outer sides.
Oh my gosh. Well, we've even heard stories about people that have encountered Bigfoot in the water as well. I was just thinking about that. Bigfoot in the water. Swimming Bigfoot. Good God Almighty. I tell you what. But yeah.
Interesting story that was related to me by the late Jan Thompson when I was in the course of processing that whole LBL story. She was telling me about a father and son that were fishing in Kentucky Lake, and they were going along fishing, and there was a log floating in the water. Well, it was floating over towards their boat. Well, they didn't want it by their boat. So the father grabbed a boat paddle.
Oh, God.
And he went to push this log. And he said when he pushed to shove the log, he said as soon as he prodded it, he said it growled at him.
Oh, my God.
And
the log growled.
The log growled at him. So the gist of the story is that it was a Bigfoot out there treading water in the middle of the day.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
And if you think about it, during the summertime, what a better place to cool off than to be in the water.
That's right. That's right. And they look like trees too. Like stumps. They're so big. Gosh, that is, I mean, he's lucky that he didn't grab his paddle and pull him in the water.
Oh, yeah.
Drown him and eat him and step on him and ride him like a surfboard. I don't know. That's crazy. That's absolutely wild. So, yes, a new fear has been unlocked tonight on the Cryptid Hunters channel. But don't live in fear. Just live in awareness, right?
Yep.
Wow. Was that at the LBL or where was that at?
Yeah.
It was?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh my gosh. So you've learned a lot over at the LBL, and I bet you get a lot of reports. And actually Don in the chat had said that he knows of at least 2 reports of hyena-type dogmen. I think one was in the 80s and one was in the 70s, I think, if I remember correctly, what I just pulled up. Here it is. Hyenas. I wonder if that's hyena-type dogman or actual hyenas. I don't know. I was thinking hyena-type dogman. When I did that remote viewing target, I specifically wrote down, I saw something that looked like a hyena-type dogman. That's the way I would describe it out there. And so that's interesting. There's been reports. He said 82 and 1979, as a matter of fact. But we also not only have like dogman types or whatever, but there's also actual hyenas. I did a show on Appalachian hyenas, and those are out there too.
There's also a thing that's been reported in Appalachian states and in the state of Oklahoma in the Kiamichi Mountains,
Oklahoma.
And I think they've been reported in Michigan, Minnesota, Wisconsin, that area of states. There's a thing that has been cited by people that they call it the clicking beast. Basically, it looks like a big hyena-type creature, but when it walks along, it's like clicking its teeth together.
Oh.
And it's like supposedly huge. I've never seen one, but I know of people that have reported seeing those. Very interesting.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that was something that I noticed right away. Whatever that thing was that I was looking at last night on the road hiding in the grass, it gnashed. Is that the word? It like gnashed its teeth kind of. It wasn't like it was like coming at me or anything, but it would just show me its teeth. And it almost looked like it was in pain or like it was trying to scare me. I don't know what it was. I don't know. It was weird. It was very weird. It's not normal for a dog to do that when you put like the headlights on it. And I don't know how a bear would react if, it got busted and, headlights got on it in the middle of the night. I mean, I don't think it was a bear. But see, here I am. I'm still trying to rationalize what it was. I'm still trying to rationalize it because it was so weird.
Well, what was your first impression of it?
An African hyena is exactly what I said. I said, that is an African hyena right there, an African dog. I didn't say hyena. I said, that's an African dog. And I literally was thinking, what is an African dog doing in here? What is it doing out here? Wow. It looked like an African dog because it had like tufts of hair like around its ears and stuff. And it was all black with big like ear, but the ears were rounded instead of pointy. So that's why I was like, well, maybe it was a bear, but it had hair, it had like tufts of hair coming out around its ears. And well, it was all black.
Interestingly, and the reason why I asked that question is because, I had a gentleman that had a very large Bigfoot cross the road on him in the LBL, and initially when he gave me the report, he was talking about how massive this thing was. And the next time that I talked to him, he had rationalized it to the point where he had changed his mind and convinced himself that it was one of the buffaloes or one of the elk had got out of the enclosure and was trying to get back into it because it was fairly close to that area where he saw this thing. So that it's always important to go with your first impression, because after that, your mind is going to try to rationalize it, and identify it with the first available thing that fits into something that you know.
Yeah. First thing, and I said it out loud. I said, that looks like an African hyena or an African dog, African dog. And then I was like, that would be a hyena. Like in my mind, I was like, that'd be a hyena. And then I was like, there's no way. I just saw a dog, man. I was like, no way. I was like, that was a bear. It was a bear. And then as soon as I was like slowed down and was looking at it, I looked over and I saw the other one, but I didn't see its head or anything. I just saw its back. and it literally looked like a chimpanzee, like bent over, like hiding in the tall grass. I didn't see its butt. I just saw its back. I mean, it was big enough to where all I saw was its back.
Wow.
It was weird. Yeah, very weird. It was right on the. I mean, it was like 2 feet from the road in
That
the
is.
tall grass. Yeah, but see, there was like all woods around on both sides.
Mhm.
You know, there was an open field down the road a little ways. And there might have been like a home or something. I don't remember. Like it was dark. I couldn't see. I couldn't see anything hardly, except for whatever my lights were on out there. I had my brights on. But yeah. First thing I said was, that's an African dog. That's like an African dog. So I don't think there's any African dogs running around Talladega National Forest that I know of.
Well,
But there's Dogman.
there could be, but the odds of a true African dog,
Yeah.
which
And it's all
those,
black. I was actually
yeah,
looking through pictures today. I was trying to find like I looked up African dog. I looked up black panthers. I looked up, because the face did look a lot like a panther. But it kind of looked like a panther to me, but it was also like a bear with the ears on its head. It was just freaking weird. It was just so weird. But I could not find a single picture of an all black African dog. I couldn't. Like I typed it in. I couldn't. Maybe somebody else can find a picture of one, but they were all brown with spots and stuff. So yeah. Anyways, that was
interesting.
my night. That was my night. A day in the life of the cryptid huntress, trying to rationalize seeing something like that. But yeah, as long as it didn't follow me home, we're good. It didn't hop in my car or right on top of my car on the way home. So hopefully I didn't get marked. Isn't that what they say? You get marked when you have like an experience like that, and they'll show up at your back door.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they say that. They say that, and I don't know how that all works, but I know there is something to it. And the reason why I say that is because I have had them kind of follow me home. Uh, it's kind of interesting. Kind
Yeah.
of.
Well, maybe that's what that thing was. It was banging on your mother-in-law's door and then your door at your house. Maybe it was that. Why do you think it would have bugged you like that in the middle of the night though? Because obviously, I mean, you live right there at the edge of the LBL, basically, right? You're not too far from there, and you've had things happen at your home, and cryptid related potentially. And why would it come out there and alert your mother-in-law and you and your wife out there, your family? Why would it have done that and like scared y'all in the middle of the night?
I really don't have an answer for that,
Mm-hmm.
but the only thing that I can think of is maybe the realization. So there for a while, and this goes back into some of the things I was going to talk about tonight.
Yeah, let's do
So
it. Let's go there.
so um, so it's already been scientifically proven, and I saw some videos about it today. They have actually tested two individuals who were asleep, who were able to communicate via dream state with
Oh,
each other in the dream state.
yeah.
So, um,
Humans can do that, by the way.
yeah.
Especially if you practice it and do what I call dream work. I've been able to do it.
So, not saying that this communication took place in the dream state
Okay.
or the astral state or a spiritual state. I
Whoa.
think probably saying a spiritual state is probably the best way to say that this took place. So there was a period of time there where there was a lot of quote unquote uh, government contractor type activity that was going on, and I suspected that um, these were eradication missions that were going on.
Okay.
So I felt obligated because my opinion of what these things are has changed through the years. I felt obligated to communicate to them that these things were taking place
Okay.
and to warn them. I'm sure they knew, but I felt obligated to let them know that there were things taking place that um, were leading in that direction. So um, basically, um, I mean, I don't know how far you want me to get into that. Uh, so basically, I conveyed that message to them in a spiritual state, and there were some things that were taking place that soon after that led me to believe that there was an eradication effort underway
of
for them
of the Dogmen,
of the Bigfoot in this
Bigfoot,
particular in this area.
which would be the Land Between the Lakes area
Yeah,
and the region around, probably.
yeah.
Did they convey messages back to you?
Well, it's it's actually kind of funny. So
This is awesome. No, I don't think you've even told me this before. I'm excited to hear about this. What did they
so
say?
so let me just put it to you like this. So when I came into this state, when I became consciously aware of this state, I
Mhm.
was in the front yard by the mailbox, and I was standing there talking to a rather large Bigfoot. He was very old. He looked like an elder, if there is such a thing. And we got done talking. I don't know what was said exactly, but we finished our conversation, and he turned to walk back down the road. And as he was walking, I had this thing popping in my head that this is a dream. And I started yelling at it. I was like, get, get on out of here.
Oh, you're like Tim Peeler up in North Carolina.
I was
Telling
like,
that
get
Bigfoot to
on
get
out
out
of
of here.
here. Get
Right?
on out of here. And he
Get.
stopped. He stopped and he turned around
Whoa.
and he curled his lip up at me and he kind of showed me some of his teeth and he turned around and kept on going. And I
Whoa.
was like, I was like, maybe this isn't a dream. So, yeah, it's kind of interesting. Um, the only other communication like that that I've allowed is, and this was more, that was a very allowed thing, something that I allowed myself to do. Um, but the only other communication that has taken place like that was the night that I had the dream about the dog men and them telling me that if I didn't stop looking for them, they were going to get me.
Oh, I remember you did tell me about that. I do remember
Yeah.
that. Do you remember that? Let me answer this question real quick? Because pyromedic, I know I'm behind on the comments, y'all. I'm so sorry. I talk a lot, if y'all hadn't noticed, and don't pay. I didn't pay any attention to the comments for about 2 minutes. Describe the size. If you're talking about what I saw last night, it was the size of it literally was like the size of a bear, like a skinny bear is the way I described it. It was like a skinny bear. That's where I kept coming up with like the mangy bear theory. Okay, could have been like a mangy bear or something, but there was another one across the road. I don't think it was a bear. I don't think it was a bear, but it was the size of like a small, medium-sized bear. It was taller than the grass, and the grass was really high, and it was crouched down right in there in front of that grass. So, anyways, sorry, Mark.
No,
So
you're fine.
I just wanted to answer that because I remembered I don't think that I described exactly how big it was. What I saw, it was big. It was like a extremely large dog, is what I thought it was. Yeah, like a very large dog, bigger than any dog I'd ever like, probably like a Great Dane size or bigger. Yeah, it was an African dog. I said so.
So, yeah, it's totally fine. So,
Yeah. So you
the,
got the mind meld going on over there
well, I
with
don't, I,
with
I don't,
different creatures.
I don't engage in that,
Hmm.
routinely.
Hmm.
But like I said, I felt obligated because, my perception of what Bigfoot is has changed since the the the, the time that I began researching till now, and that has actually it's kind of complicated because a lot of people when they look at this subject they don't really they look at it from a superficial view and they don't really look at it close. And I'm not saying that I'm right. I'm not claiming to be an expert, but some of the things that I've come into contact with as far as ideas and stuff, when you look at it, to me it just makes sense. So, you know, and that evolution, um, as far as the changing in my view, has gone from when I first started out researching. Yeah, I was a flesh and blood, Bigfoot, relic hominid, undiscovered primate type person. But the more that I've researched and the more that I put myself out there, the more strange and unknown
Hmm.
variables I started to encounter. And there were just a lot of weird things that went on. And, that shaped my view into what it is today. And, I went through the whole phase of, they're descended from the Nephilim and they're all demonic. And it's even changed from that. I don't think that they're all demonic. And the reason why I say that is because, um, so, and this ties in with a couple of other different subjects. Like, you have people that encounter these things, and some people encounter them and they're just shy and they don't want to have a big interaction and they just go on about their business. Or I've even heard stories where a person was thrown off of a horse and they were thrown into a ravine, and a pretty good distance away from any roadway.
Hmm.
And when they fell, they were knocked out. And if you're in the chat and you're hearing me tell your story, just know that I'm not telling it out of any kind of malicious intent or anything like that. I'm just sharing um, in a very vague fashion to try to get to a point. So that person, when they fell off of their horse into this ravine and was knocked out, when they came to, they were actually placed up on the side of a roadway where they could
Oh,
get help. And they didn't know how they got there. They just knew that they fell into a ravine, and then the next thing they know, they're on the side of a roadway. So
whoa.
there's beneficial interactions where these beings help people and do
Hmm.
things for people that are not necessarily bad. And then on the flip side of that, you have you have people who encounter them and they're just like got rabies or something, and they're very aggressive and they're doing things that they just are perceived as being not friendly. And you have these instances where um, they do harm to people. And I'm not gonna say that they're that potential exists in everything. Even down to like the you know any woodland animal. I mean, like you take a squirrel. You wouldn't think that a squirrel would tear you up, but let me tell you,
Uh,
if you
yeah.
get a squirrel in the wrong position, that little joker will tear you up.
Oh
And I
yeah.
know that because I had that it happened to a friend of mine. But anyways,
God, that'd kind of be funny to see. But all due respect to your friend, poor guy.
yeah,
That would
let's
suck.
just say
Squirrely little
he
fella.
he got his back tore up. That squirrel tore him
Oh,
up.
oh my gosh.
Yep.
Well, don't mess with his nuts. I'm just saying. Oh my
So
gosh. I know. I mean that in the nicest way. Good grief.
So, in
That's
saying
funny.
that, I think there are factors that come into play with it more being more than just Bigfoot's having a bad day or bad hair day or whatever. I think there are factors that come into play that determine whether or not an interaction is going to be good or bad. And I don't think it's as cut and dry as there's either good or bad ones, and or they're just having a good or a bad day. I think that there are factors that come into play that contribute to that heavily,
Mm-hmm.
and those factors are so. If you look at the, you know, as I said, my origin theory of these things, has changed. So when you look at the biblical narrative, you have um, where it talks about the Nephilim and their offspring and all that stuff. And then what's interesting is you have that period of time where the focus seemed to be on modifying the human bloodline or genome. And then there was a shift at that some point after that where they were like, oh, well, we're not happy with that. We want to dilute and pollute all the bloodlines on the earth. So
They
they
had
had,
tweaked the recipe.
yeah, and they had interactions with, you know, humans, animals, plants, sea
Yikes.
life, you name it. There were interactions that took place in an effort to try to dilute those bloodlines
Golly.
or pollute those bloodlines. And those
Plants.
offspring have a very distinct name, and they are referred to as they are at, when it talks about that in the Bible, it talks about them being the Raphaim.
Mm-hmm.
So, at some point after that, you have to say that the bloodlines, due to reports and interactions with humans, we have these stories from the Native American tribes where they steal women and children,
Yep.
or you have a young girl that, a puberty aged girl that leaves, um, and is taken. And when she returns, she's bearing a child.
She's with child. That's
Yeah.
right.
And, you have instances like that take place, which would um, modify or dilute that genome further. So that would, in my opinion, explain why some of these things can do certain things where others can't. Now, we also have to bear in mind with that these beings, good, bad, or indifferent, however you want to look at it, the bottom line of the matter is, as far as creation goes, you know, it doesn't fit into the original creation outline. And when I say that, basically they are not supposed to exist, is what I'm saying, because of the fact that they don't fit the creation outline.
Mm-hmm.
Now, not saying that they're this, that, or the other, but what I am saying is there could be a component that they have or don't have that allows them to, and I know this is going into a different realm where they're able to be spiritually possessed by these Nephilim spirits on the fly at will whenever the spirit decides that it wants to possess them.
Mm-hmm.
And that could be, I'm not
Right.
saying it is, but it could be a contributor into why some of the violent attacks that we hear about happen.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so that's just one of my theories on, how interactions play out. And then another thing to consider with that is, you know, if you look at what, you know, I know on the last show we talked about the shofar, and one of the
Mhm.
things with that whole thing was part of my research into that was to be able to show. I had big plans for that research,
Right.
but unfortunately, due to the influence and interjections of others, I basically stopped anything to do with that because of the simple fact that the end goal of that research was to be able to corroborate what these things could be. And if you think about it from this perspective, if you say to yourself, these things are part animal, part human, and part angel, then they may have abilities outside of the ones that we have, you know. And I always tell people, and I know you've mentioned this on a couple shows, but I used to tell people, the greatest mystery about Bigfoot is this is that they know and understand exactly what they are. We're the ones that don't know and understand what we are. That's
Mhm.
the greatest mystery is they're very aware of what they are. And I think that plays into, I don't know how many times I've heard people talk about, I'll drive out in my truck out in the stories like this. Drive out into the woods and I'm playing gospel music and the Bigfoot will just come up and listen to the music. Or they'll get out and they'll sit on the side of a hill and they'll sing or read the Bible and the Bigfoot will come up around them. And that kind of goes back to my close encounter where the one was outside the window where I picked up that it was sad because of the fact that it knew that it didn't have the same opportunities that were available to me were not afforded to it because of what it is. Now, does that mean that you know and y- I guess what I'm trying to say is me talking about this is not a message of blood, guts, gore, destruction. It's actually
Attacks.
it's
Yeah.
actually a message of hope
Mhm.
because even though they may be classified by the Bible as an abomination and not be meant to exist. If you look at the book of Jasher and those non-canonical texts, if you read them, it talks about different classifications of people, if you will, for lack of a better word. It doesn't really say that they're people, but it just refers to them as those who are not of the fold. So that to me would mean that the opportunity for salvation and repentance and all that stuff may be available to them.
Hmm.
The same thing if you look back at Saint Christopher, the
The
dog-headed
dog-headed saint.
saint. You know, he was supposedly a wolf or dog-headed man. Now, he was actually sainted because he converted and you know was very adamant about his belief in God and basically changed his way and or changed his ways and started following the word of God. So I think and this is probably the worst thing that we as humans can do is to uh, make a predetermination or justification, or probably predetermination is probably the best word, that someone or something is going to the fiery pit. Right now, that is not our job. In my opinion, that's not
Mhm.
our job. We're not to condemn anybody to the pit. So, in saying that, I'm just saying that there may be that opportunity for these beings, even though they're not supposed to exist, for them to have a good afterlife. So,
Wow. Wow, this is deep, Mark. This is very deep.
well,
Because I've talked to people before that are like, well, they don't believe that they have the capability of having an afterlife, of like going to heaven, as we call it, or like this is all there is what I've been told. That's what I've been told by some people. Like everybody, different people have different viewpoints on it, and so that's what I've been told. And I was told that like they're, I don't want to say jealous of humans, or maybe perplexed by humans, because we've got, we're of a higher consciousness and stuff. I think the Bigfoots can be of a higher consciousness as well, though. Do you know what I mean? I personally do. I
well,
mean, if they're like you said, they know more than they know more about themselves than we know about ourselves,
yeah.
right?
Well, I'm not going to say that they they may not have a higher consciousness,
Hmm.
but what I will say is, definitely they know more about themselves than we know about ourselves,
Yeah.
and definitely they're under a lot less influence in some locations than we are to environmental factors that um, that can affect them.
Hmm.
You know, so I mean, like we were talking before the show. I don't know if you want to get into this because I know this is another deep subject.
Uh-oh, controversial. Let's do it.
So we were talking about blue light, right?
Oh yeah, because we were, and I mentioned Lucifer. I've covered Lucifer on the show. I think I remote viewed it. It was a blind target that Arkeem Raw gave me a long time ago or something. And the Lucifer, that's Lucifer from the Denver airport, right? The horse, which
Hmm.
is related to mind control. Okay, but it's also, they call the blue lights Lucifer. Some people do, um, where they're putting blue lights. I mean, they're in our electronics, right, Mark?
They're everywhere.
They're in, and they're like outside on our street lamps. They're in our schools. They're everywhere. And the fact that that has the Lucifer horse at Denver, gosh, this is for entertainment purposes only, has connections to like the Montauk Project and mind control. Okay, what are these blue lights doing to everybody,
They're making
the
them
masses?
they're making them do a lot of different things. So it's influencing their a person's mental state. It's affecting, and I think we need to back up a little bit and intertwine the subject of the the non-reflective eye shine into
Okay.
this mix before we get into this conversation. So,
Oh
uh,
yeah, let's back it up a little bit because this is how it connects, y'all. This is how it connects. I love this.
so,
We always connect the dots over here.
so, we have naturally when you shine a white light at an animal, you're going to get some kind of eye shine. Some animals have, you know, uh, specific, like cats generally are green, dogs are, you know, you can get different colors depending upon angle of the light refraction. You're going to get, either white or green. Deer, you'll get either a yellowish white or white. But anyways, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about when people report self-illuminating eye shine. Now, I'll be the first to admit I have never experienced that in the field. I've spent a lot of time in the field. I've been all over this world and I've never seen anything like that. I'm not above saying that it's not possible and that it doesn't exist, and here's why. So we have this blue light, and basically what blue light does, among the things that it does to us, one of the things that it does is it hampers our ability to produce biophotons. And biophotons are the result of a chemical reaction within our body that produces light. So everybody emits light, and to
Some more
varying
than others.
to
I'm just
varying
kidding.
degrees. Yeah. Well, I mean this is part of it, to varying degrees. And um, blue light affects that, our body's ability to produce that. So knowing that we emit light, um, so I guess the tie-in is the fact that Bigfoot and these other cryptids may not be exposed to this blue light, or if they are, it's at a severely lower level than what we are. So they are able to produce light within their body based on their genetic. And I know this is, I was trying not to get into a whole bunch of, HEP, adenosine triphosphate, and all that good stuff about the chemical reactions.
Well,
But
I think that we're always trying to figure these things out. So we're looking for solutions, and I like to connect dots here. So go for it. Bring it up.
so,
I
but
love it.
the direction that I was going with that is, you know, with them, based on the amount of human that they have within them, they are able to produce that uh, probably a higher level of biophotons than we are because we're so exposed to blue light. We
Hmm.
get it from computers, TVs,
Cell phones.
cell phones, any electronic devices you have. You get it from lights.
Hmm.
Um, unless you're running incandescent lights, they're not going to emit any IRA waves
Hmm.
that would even remotely be beneficial to you. So, and then there's the whole sunlight factor that comes into play. You know, the majority of people, a lot of people spend a lot of time indoors. They don't really get out and get any sunlight,
Yes.
and or they're under lower exposure to sunlight. And when you know UVA light, or that wavelength of light, is what helps us produce those biophotons. So, in saying that, I think it's possible that there may be the ability within these beings to, for whatever reason, whether it's to enable them to see in the dark or to see in an altered state, for whatever reason, they may be able to
Oh,
concentrate that light emission through their eyes.
that's interesting. Hmm. I've never heard of this theory before, but I like it. Could be.
And there's obviously more to the story, but you know, I just wanted to give a core nutshell version of the story,
Hmm.
so that, you know, I mean, I, I'm of the mindset that I could sit here and tell everybody everything that I know about everything. And what real benefit is that going to do for a person, especially if they have the ability to research it on their own?
Hmm.
Because, they could walk away from this show, listening to this show, and be like, oh, well, that was interesting, but I don't really, you know, go along with what was being said or whatever because I don't have anything to back it up. So I like to encourage people to do their own or at least some level of research so that they can formulate within their own minds what their truth is. Because once again, I don't claim to be an expert in all this stuff. I'm not a scientist. I'm not a I'm not a biologist. This is just things that I look at whenever I try to answer these questions for myself. And that's a lot of the reason why I don't share them with a lot of folks is because, you know, like I said, what's right for me might not be right for you, or my answer was, if it's right for me, it may not be right for you, or
Mhm.
it may not be to the level of detail that you want. So that's why I encourage people to do their own research. Um, so that's kind of it in a nutshell.
I-
There may be further applications where that that might be utilized within these beings. Um,
mhm.
so it's just good things to think about.
It is. Well, I think it's fantastic. I mean, that was the first thing I noticed with that creature last night. The first one I saw was it was eye reflection. So it wasn't self illuminated, but I've seen the self illuminated lights too, out in the woods of what we consider to be Bigfoots. We thought were Bigfoots out there. So it's pretty interesting. I do want to bring up this comment from our good friend, Mr. Jerry Millwood Jr. is in the chat tonight. What's up, Jerry? He was on the show last Saturday night with us. And he says, police departments across the country switch back from red lights to blue lights because studies were done showing that blue lights spellbind people.
Yep,
Good grief.
it's actually um, it's actually been
Wow.
used. I mean, if you go to a casino, for example, what are the majority of the light colors there? It's mainly blue. I mean, if you read any book on mind control, it'll tell you that this color behind me is is
Oh my
uh,
God. My entire background's blue. I love blue. Okay.
is is
Man,
is blue.
I
Blue.
have them all. It's always blue. I love blue. What the
Well,
heck?
there's nothing wrong with blue.
Oh, dang it.
It's
I
just
hope
in how
everyone's
it's used.
hypnotized. Just kidding. You are getting sleepy, everyone. I'm just kidding.
Bring
Oh, man.
us
I didn't know
bring
that.
us
But now
cookies
I
and
know.
milk.
I know. Oh, my gosh. Well, I'm not trying to spellbind you guys. I did not even know this until today. And I never even put two and two together, actually, with the whole Lucifer stuff. And, that the horse is blue. Okay. And now it all makes sense. Yeah, it is quite hypnotizing when you get. I'm not going to say I've ever been pulled over by a cop, but I probably have a few times in my lifetime. I used to be a race car driver. I had a heavy foot for a while, and I drove a fast car. Okay, and I got pulled over a couple times. And those lights, man, yeah, nothing like it. It is spellbinding. Makes you sweat a little bit too. Just saying.
Well, that's all part of the people. I could go into a big diatribe about the people involved in the development of the whole blue light thing. And that's what basically what it was designed for is they wanted to see how easy you could entrance and brainwash somebody just using light. Very, very real. Very, very real deal.
Wow. Well, colors matter. Okay. I was just thinking about when you were saying we're talking about the eye shine, the eye self illuminate eye lights and things like that. Self illuminating eyes, I guess is what we call it. Greg House was on the show a while back, Woodwalkers, and Greg was telling us. I was telling him about my Dogman investigation, and he set up where he lives up in North Alabama. There had been, I don't know if, I think he said this on the show. I'm pretty sure we talked about it, but he said there had been Dogman sightings up there and they had blue eyes. Their eyes were shining blue in the dark. Now, I don't know if they were reflecting blue or they were self-illuminating blue, but the Dogman had blue eyes out at that forest where he lives at.
I've heard of that.
Hmm.
I don't know whether that's just a genetic thing or whether it serves a purpose, but it's very interesting. You mainly um, see that in certain there are only certain dog breeds that have blue eyes. So it's interesting um, that you encounter that in some dogman reports.
Yeah, it's not very common to hear that, um, but you do hear about it occasionally, and so I think it's interesting. And Kent had actually made a comment about like the DEWs, if you know what I mean,
Hmm.
and how people are painting their roofs a particular blue,
Hmm.
to prevent their the fires from hitting them and things like that. So I don't know. Blue is the color of the year, I guess. It's the color. So complete mind control. So,
Well, ultimately, that's the the reasoning behind me mentioning the whole dream to dream communication was multifaceted, to get the point across that you know it is possible to communicate with other beings, in the dream state, but it also should serve as a warning that, you know as we know, we have a tendency to weaponize everything, um, for use against, the little people.
oh yeah,
So
everything's
so
weaponized, isn't it?
yeah. So, I figure, you know, it'd be a good opportunity to bring that to the forefront for those that aren't aware of it, that, that communication can take place not just from person to person, but from a device to you in the
Hmm.
dream state. So those are things to be concerned with, because I mean, at the end of the day, um, you know, freedom freedom has changed its meaning on us, and we've allowed it to change, and it's only going to change in a good direction if we change it.
Yeah, that line in the sand has been moved too many times at this point.
Mhm.
Okay, in every facet of our lives, it has, and it's time to get back on an even playing court somehow. I don't know. Uh, I think it's great that like you have put a lot of thought into your research here. You have done a lot of not only boots on the ground field research at one of the most infamous cryptid locations in the United States, by the way. But you're a deep thinker, and you've had so many experiences that you have really you're diving into what's really behind some of these anomalies and these enigmas that we're all the time chasing our tails about and
Oh
like
yeah.
really nitpicking at, but yet we're not getting anywhere with it because we really don't know the answers to a lot of this stuff. But I think it takes the deep thoughts of Mark Machek sometimes to put it out there and just to put your ideas out there and your thoughts about it
Well,
so we figure it
uh,
out.
you know, I said, I used to listen to a lot of podcasts, and it just seemed like a lot of parroting going on, and not a whole lot of thought being put into what was being said. And you can't really fault the people that are talking about these subjects for
Hmm.
doing that, because they're only relating their experience. And what my experience is may not be even remotely close to what somebody else's is. So, you know it it takes um objective thought and paying attention to figure out what's actually going on.
Hmm. I know. Do you think we'll ever figure out what's really going on, Mark? Well, we figured out in our lifetimes.
Well, you know the old saying, I know you've seen the meme, you got to get you a conspiracy theorist friend to tell you what's fixing to go down. Because
You do.
the conspiracy
Yeah.
theories they're all playing out to be true.
Yeah. Yeah. I saw a funny meme today. Somebody had posted on Facebook, and it was a book covered in highlighter. And it said, I'm just highlighting all the conspiracy theories that I had that came true. And the whole entire book was covered in highlighter, you know. So yeah, we're on a roll over here with a lot of these theories that we've had. And so what do I always say? Buckle up, buttercups. You know,
Yep.
we've been on a wild ride. It's not like it's coming. We're on it. Like
Oh
we're on
yeah.
it right now. We're neck deep in a wild ride right now. And I'm here for it. I love it. I love it. And that's why I don't hesitate to talk about, you know, stuff that happens to me. Even that creature last night, I can't say definitively, like it didn't stand up on its hind legs and like walk towards my truck. It was crouched down in the grass. Okay, so I'm not going to sit here and say that was definitely a dogman, but I think it, after talking with Mark and him telling me that they have dogmen right there, exactly where I was, it's the only thing that makes sense at this point. It's what I saw
Yeah.
last night. Two of them
Well,
on the road.
you know, from my perspective on it, you know, I would, if it were me and I didn't get a good clear view or video or a picture of it,
Hmm.
I wouldn't even touch it.
Yeah, right.
I would just be like, what?
It was
That was
weird.
weird. That was weird.
Yeah.
I've never seen anything like that before. Which is pretty much what I do with, you know, like me talking about the creature that crossed the road in front of me. I've never seen anything like that before, so I
Yeah.
can't really say what it was, other than something I've never seen before.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what I say. It was something it took me, I'm still trying to figure out what it was. Still trying to figure it out. And I don't know. So I thought I would just share it with the world tonight. Let you in on my confusion. Okay, on whatever that was I saw last night. And but you know, it kind of takes like knowing the area, getting the history behind it, knowing exactly what people are reporting and investigating over there, and then it's just another piece of the puzzle as to what's going on out there. And maybe it could help somebody. Maybe there's other people that live out in that area that have seen the same thing I saw last night. And you know, I would definitely lock my door. I lock my doors at night anyways. But you know, I remember back when I was a kid and I lived on a farm out in the middle of nowhere. I don't remember ever locking our doors at night. Like, wow, times have changed. Times have
Oh
really
yeah.
changed. I can't believe it. We didn't even think. I don't think we locked our doors at night back then. Golly, it was like living in Mayberry. We didn't worry about dogmen back then. Opening up a
Hey,
door,
you
getting in a
better have that.
doggy door.
You better have that wheel gun loaded up and not be Barney fifing it.
Oh my gosh, I think it's wild. I mean, no, we were always locked and loaded. I can promise you that. I can promise you that. And maybe that's why they didn't worry about locking the doors.
Oh yeah.
Oh man, but yeah, man, this has been a really fantastic show tonight, Mark, and this
Well,
is
thanks for
awesome.
having me on.
Is there anything else that you wanted to bring up tonight before we go? Because I know you got a lot that you think about, a lot that we could have talked about tonight.
Yeah, I think that's probably enough to to cover for tonight. I mean, we've been talking for a couple hours,
Oh
so
yeah,
got
oh
to
yeah.
save something for another show. And
Save it for
I
another
do
time.
have, yeah, I do have other things. Um, and you know, I think it probably is best not to overfill the cup. Uh, and allow people to try to get a drink from it.
Oh my gosh. Well, your cup runneth over, Mark.
Well,
And so thank you for sharing it with us and tonight.
welcome.
And I just love bouncing ideas back and forth with you and hearing your ideas on things and together we are maybe going to figure some of this stuff out or just put some ideas out there just to have everybody think and maybe think differently and have a new perspective on things. It helps.
Oh yeah.
So that's why I do this.
And for the record, I love life. I'm not intending to do any
Me too.
harm to myself. And, you know, everything in this discussion has been for informational and educational purposes. And don't come
Educational
at me,
purposes.
bro.
Don't come at me, bro. Oh man, no, it's all good over here. We're just over here just throwing ideas out there. And yeah, I don't think we offended anybody this time, hopefully. I don't know. We're always going to offend somebody, Mark.
Yeah, well, you know, I gave him a little bit of the puppy tonight.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah. Well,
Yeah, I remember that comment.
which one?
uh, in the last interview or last show that we did together. Somebody
Oh,
was
I don't
describing me
remember.
as a puppy.
Oh, were
So
they?
I gave him
Oops.
something. I gave him something to chew on.
Uh-oh. I must not have caught that because I might have just, yeah, I don't know. I'm really good at getting rid of comments that are causing a stir. Okay. but but anyway, sorry I missed that one. Dang it, I'm gonna have to go back and look now. But
Oh
yeah,
no,
this has been
it's not there
it was all
anymore.
right. Okay, awesome. Okay. Well, Kent says this has been a freaking awesome show. Thank you, Kent. That is so sweet. I also wanted to thank, let's see. Deb D. Thank you for gifting a Cryptid Huntress membership to the Hunt Club tonight to one lucky viewer. I really appreciate that. That was very sweet of you and much appreciated. And yes, Mark and I love our lives, and we're not going anywhere. Okay, and it wouldn't be, you know, we love our lives. That's all we have to say right there. Okay.
And you know the sad reality of it is, you know, uh, you know, you hear these stories in the cryptid world community where they talk about, you know, oh well, you know, I had this happen or I had that happen, or, you know, you see these videos where they're out researching it. They got these black helicopters flying on them. When in actuality, that's not the case at all. But
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
when you for real have something like that happen, you know, that's when it gets real. And you know, I made that statement because, you know, I can't speak for anybody but myself, but I have had incidents where stuff like that has happened. That's why I roll hard.
Yeah. 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 Everybody gets real paranoid out in the woods. Not everybody, but some people do. They get really paranoid, and it's funny because I get like two sides of it. It's like, well, why? And I even have done this myself. I'm like, okay, well, yes, I have been informed that I am watched. Let's just say watched. That's a
Yeah.
loose term. Okay, it's a loose term. Um, but like I don't sit around worrying about it or whatever. You know what I mean? Like who even knows what that means? You know what I mean? Like it's not
Yeah.
going to stop me from going out and doing what I do. And I do get people that contact me often that are like, oh, I'm so and so, and I'm not going to tell you my real name, but I go, don't be hunting Dogman, but I want to know where you go and who you go with, and I'm like, I'm not.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? It's like, so I know there are people inserted into my life sometimes, I understand the dangers, but like, I don't let anything stop me. You know what I mean? And I don't go around getting all paranoid, being like, oh gosh, everybody's watching me. And,
Well, a certain level of
try not
paranoia
to
is
be like
healthy.
that. I'm always a little bit, well, because I'm a little bit crazy. So, if I'm
But
doing what I'm doing.
when you
So
get
I'm just crazy enough to not worry about it.
when you
Yeah.
get 12 monkeys level, That's when it's a little bit much.
Oh God, like that movie with Brad, was that Brad Pitt?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't remember the whole plot to that movie, but I do remember. Was it like The Sins? Like I don't know what movie was that? I can't remember what the 12th
No,
Monkey is.
that's where they were doing biological experiments and
Oh,
that stuff.
oh. Well, I have to go back and rewatch that. I haven't seen that in a long time. 12th Monkey. Okay. Well, everybody, you have an assignment. Y'all go watch the 12th Monkey now.
12 Monkeys.
12 Monkeys. Oh, 12 Monkeys. See, and I don't even know. Maybe I haven't seen it. I thought I did because I said it was Brad Pitt, right?
Yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
Brad Pitt movie. I have
He
seen it.
did
I
a
just don't
movie.
remember it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm terrible with movies, by the way. Well, man. Okay. Well, this has been awesome. Mark, I hope you stay. I know you always stay safe over there. And you haven't had any more. You haven't had any more banging on your house or anything trying to knock on your door in the past couple
Not
of years.
lately. Not lately.
Okay, good, good,
And
because
and
that's
and
that's scary.
I will say this, I've heard people, there are people out there who attempt to help other people when they have not so good cryptid experiences going on. And I will I will tell you this, you know, if you want it to stop, you have to 100% give it up, because if you don't, it's not going to stop.
Uh, do you mean give up chasing cryptids and
No, no,
stuff, or do you
no.
mean spiritually? Like,
Yeah.
what do you mean?
So
Like,
so as an example,
okay,
so as an
sorry,
example,
I
let's say
had to
you have a
ask.
person. Let's say you have a person who thinks it's cool to have encounters. Well, they start having, let's say for example, they start having these encounters in a wooded area in off of their property. They go home, they start having encounters at home. So that's naturally, in a lot of cases, it's an undesirable thing, or people don't want that to happen. So if you want it to stop, you're gonna have to, and it may come down to where you may have to just stop altogether. But you're gonna have to stop allowing them to be in your life in order for it to completely stop.
Yeah, you gotta block them, block them. Oh my gosh, you just gotta stop. Yeah, well, I can see that. You
And
gotta stop cold turkey. Leave
and
it all behind you.
and I'm not saying that as somebody that doesn't know. I'm telling you that from experience. So yeah.
Well, good to know. Good to know. If anything's bugging you and you want it to stop, you got to walk away from it, y'all. You got to. You don't have a choice. And 86, thank you for that super sticker. That's so sweet of you. Says, thanks, JoJo, for the recommendation. I saw that earlier. JoJo, thank you for sending 86 over here. I appreciate you. And thank you for that super sticker. That's very sweet. I appreciate it. And yeah, it seems like the more things that have happened to me, the more curious I got. And the deeper I went down a rabbit hole into all different avenues of the paranormal and the supernatural and cryptids. And that's just the way I am. And I always say, like, don't live in fear, but nothing has ever gotten that wild and crazy to where I got scared. Like nothing ever came to my door and tried to like rip my door off in the middle of the night or bang on it, like happened to you and stuff over there. But I mean, y'all are okay. I mean, it was scary, right? But
Oh yeah.
nobody got hurt physically, right? You got your dog back, even though it smelled like an armpit of a Bigfoot, right?
He did. I mean, he stunk something fierce.
What do you think that was? Do you think it was just the Bigfoot picking your
And
dog up?
and it was like oily.
So that was the dog. That was the Bigfoot. I was gonna say the dog foot. Didn't make any sense. Might have been a dog foot. I don't know. Could have been a mix. But
Well,
That's weird.
my opinion is that there may have been a female Bigfoot in this area that had kind of gotten attached to him, and when he got out, he went and found it, I guess.
Oh, dogs are good with that kind of stuff. Yeah, yeah, I know what you mean. Okay. That's wild. That's wild. Well, I'm glad you got your dog back, and I'm glad. I know Jerry was in the chat a while ago. He had to go. He's got something big going on tomorrow, but he and his dog, Scoot. I remember Scoot. Scoot was his name. Scoot came back, and I believe a Bigfoot or a feral person might have taken care of Scoot too. But yeah, man, this is wonderful. This has been a great conversation tonight, Mark. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. Tell everybody where they can find you. Tell them about your website. You got a YouTube channel too, if you want to tell everybody about it.
Yeah, I've got a YouTube channel. There's not a ton of content on there, but it's Cryptiville, I think 459, I believe, is the YouTube name. And then there's also my website, cryptidville.com. And there are links to everything on the website. So you can get to my YouTube channel from the website.
Awesome. Yeah, y'all go over and visit cryptidville.com and go over to his YouTube channel. It's Cryptidville. And you guys will see Cryptidville in the chat sometimes too. I love having you in the chats and stuff too. Whenever I got another guest on, and you always add a lot to the show, and you're also pretty humorous as well. And you leave some good comments, keep me laughing all the time. So I know the stuff we talk about is it can be pretty serious, y'all, sometimes. And stuff. So it's good to kind of break it up with some laughter occasionally. And Andrew Gnomes and Trucking, I was talking about you earlier tonight when we first started the show. So go back and watch it from the beginning, because we did mention, I gave you a shout out tonight. So I see you in here. And man, we've had a wonderful chat tonight. You guys are so amazing. Everybody is so wonderful. We have the best moderators and the best chat on the internet. And so I want to thank everybody for being here. Walter and Kent. And let's see. Thank you for the super stickers. Oh my gosh. I didn't even see that. Larry Sharp. He gifted 5 Cryptid Hunters memberships. I missed that earlier, Larry. Thank you for being here. That is so sweet of you. I was in Alabama just yesterday, Larry. And man, I should have hit you up. You could have come and gone camping with us. So thank you for that. And also 86. Thank you so much for that super sticker as well. And Deb, thank you for gifting that super sticker. And Maureen, thank you for being a member for 16 months at the Hunt Club. You're my oldest member. And by that, I mean, you've been here the longest. So thank you so much. All right. Well, all right, everybody. Well, thank you so much for being here. And let's come back and meet me on Monday. I'll be back at 1 p.m. on I guess it's the Cryptid Huntress Live. I don't know. I don't really have names for my shows too much. But, I do have some wonderful guests. Listen, I got our Saturday nights are booking up from here on out, y'all. I think I pronounced his name Treblace or Trebles. I was on his show this week. It's Paranoid Radio. He's coming on next Saturday night. He'll be here. We're going to talk about his elf encounter out in Los Angeles, and also his family lineage of a skinwalker in his family who was actually unalived by her village down in South America. It is a wild story, y'all. We're going to go there on next Saturday. And then the Saturday after that, I have my good friend Flat Rock coming on. And so that is going to be a great show too. I got to hang out with Flat Rock yesterday. And so he will be here the next week. So we've got an all-star lineup coming up, as we always do. So y'all definitely come back and see me every show. And Mark, thanks again for being here. Please stay safe out there. Stay safe out there.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Well, keep us posted on all the goings on of the LBL, please. You're my contact there. I'm just saying.
All I can do is try. It's a big area.
I know, right? It's a big area. Well, maybe I'll get up there and come see you guys up in that direction before the end of the year, and go hunt down some dogmen in the LBL. Okay. But all right, everybody, have a wonderful night. Thank you guys so much for being here, and we'll see you next time. All right. Bye, y'all.